Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya So we're reading today from Srimad-bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 1, text 49 and 50 together. Chapter is called The Advent of Lord Krishna. So we'll chant the Sanskrit here. Pradaya mrityave putran Mochaye kripanam imam Sutame yanijayaran Rityorvana rayetav chet Viparyayo vakins nashad Gatir datur duratyaya Upastito nivarteta Nivrita punar apatet Mochaye kripanam imam Sutame yadijayaran Mrityorvana mriyeta chet Viparyayo vakindashat Gatir datur duratyaya Upastito nivarteta Nivrita punar apate Bhavaya vidyaya bhutram Uchaye kripanan imam Sutame adijayaran Rityorvana mayetache Viparyayo vakindasya Gatirdatur duratyaya Upasito nivarteta Nivrita punar atpare Pradaya mrityave putran Mokshaye kripana imam Sutame yadijayaran Rityorvana priyetache Viparyayo vakindashat Gatir datur duratyaya Upasito nivarteta Nivrita punar apate Okay, so word for word. Pradaya, promising to deliver. Mrityave, unto Kansa, who is death personified for Devaki. Putran, my sons. Mochaye, I am releasing her from imminent danger. Kripanam, innocent. Imam, Devaki. Sutaha, sons. May, my. Yadi, whether. Jayaran, should take birth. Mrityu, Kansa. Va, or. Na, not. Mriyeta, should die. Chet, if. Viparyayaha, just the opposite. Va, or. Him, whether. Na, not. Shat, it may happen. Gati, the movement. Dhatu, of providence. Duryaya, very difficult to understand. Upastitaha, that which is presently obtained. Vivarteta, may stop. Nivritaha, Devaki's death being stopped. Una apatate, in the future it may happen again, but what can I do? Translation. Vasudeva considered, by delivering all my sons to Kamsa, who is death personified, I shall save the life of Devaki. Perhaps Kamsa will die before my sons take birth, or since he is already destined to die at the hands of my son, one of my sons may kill him. For the time being, let me promise to hand over my sons, so that Kamsa will give up his immediate threat. And if in due course of time Kamsa dies, I shall have nothing to fear. Repeat after me. Vasudeva considered, by delivering all my sons to Kamsa, who is death personified, I shall save the life of Devaki. Perhaps Kamsa will die before my sons take birth. Or since he is already destined to die at the hands of my son, one of my sons may kill him. For the time being, let me promise to hand over my sons to let me promise to hand over my sons, so that Kamsa will give up this immediate threat. And if in due course of time Kamsa dies, I shall have nothing to fear. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Vasudeva wanted to save the life of Devaki by promising to deliver his sons to Kamsa. Quote, in the future, he thought, Kamsa may die, or I may not beget any sons. Even if a son is born and I deliver him to Kamsa, Kamsa may die at his hands, for by providence anything could happen. It is very difficult to understand how things are managed by providence. End quote. But, thus, Vasudeva decided that he would promise to deliver his sons to the hands of Kamsa in order to save Devaki from imminent danger of death. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Ganajana Shalakaya Chakshura Unmilitam Nina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we have a very interesting situation here. The situation is that Kamsa, having heard from some demigod in the sky, some voice in the sky anyway, we'll say it was a demigod, that he was warned at the time of his sister's marriage that her eighth son would come and kill him. Not only would that eighth son come to kill him, but he was told, you're a big fool. You're a big fool. You're driving the chariot of your sister, and you don't realize that your sister's son, eighth son, at least 8 years in the future, at least, was going to kill you. So immediately he became crazy with fear, because no one wants to die, especially a materialistic person. So Vasudeva is thinking, and of course Kamsa is not going to. He didn't just say, "I'm going to." He didn't just think about, okay, I'm fearful of death from a son of my sister Devaki. He immediately. He immediately, without any other thought, he grabs her by the hair, he takes a sword in his hand, he's ready to chop off her head, kill her immediately, on the chariot, right after the marriage ceremony. So he's thinking like this. So of course Vasudeva is also in the chariot, so Vasudeva is immediately trying to negotiate with him. Vasudeva didn't feel he could fight with him. Kamsa was too powerful. So he tried to negotiate with him, glorifying him in so many ways, even though there's nothing glorious about Kamsa's life. But Vasudeva tried to glorify him, and that didn't convince him. So finally he said, because Vasudeva was very honest, very truthful. Everyone knew that if he spoke something, it was going to happen. He would keep his promise. So he promised, on the basis of his very good reputation, to Kamsa, if you you just spare her life, and if any sons do come in the future, because we don't really know what will happen in the future, but if any sons come, I will deliver each one of them to you. So of course, this purport we're reading about how he's trying to take care of this. The immediate situation, the immediate situation is that Devaki is about ready to be killed. So first of all, save Devaki's life. Then he could, maybe in the future, something different will happen. Maybe his son will actually kill Kamsa. Maybe something else he didn't know. So of course we are also in this similar situation. We're in the material world. We have to take priorities. We have to take priorities, especially we're practicing spiritual life. We have to consider what is most important. Most important is because we take up the path of Krishna consciousness, before we take up the path of Krishna consciousness, we may be thinking, for materialistic person, we may be thinking, I have so many important things to do in my life, so many plans, so many desires to make lots of money and enjoy in so many ways, like that. But an intelligent person, and most people are not intelligent, we get our intelligence from Krishna, and most people are not very intelligent in that way, because but if we're a little intelligent, then we'll think, what is the real priority? What is the, because every one of us is destined that we will, at some point, we will die. Everyone. You cannot stop that. They say nothing is certain except for death and taxes. If you don't pay your taxes, you're in trouble. And if you agree or don't agree that you're going to die, you're going to die, because it's just the way of the material world. Like this planet is also called what? Marcha Loka. Marcha Loka means the place of death. The heavenly planets is very, of course, everyone dies, but it's a lifespan is very long, and old age doesn't actually exist in the heavenly planets. You pretty much you live a very nice, comfortable life throughout until just at the moment you're going to die. Even then, there's hardly notice of death. It happens very, very quickly. That's heavenly planets. But this planet, we see death around us all over the place, and that's in a sense that is good. It's good we see it, because we are. It's a constant reminder. We all have people we knew, maybe friends, maybe relatives, other devotees like that, who we know the time will come, we get sick, or there's some accident, or something happens, and there's death. So it's a constant reminder for all of us that when these things are happening, when these things are happening all around us, then we know that my time will come too. And of course, nobody knows when. We can say, we can be young and we think, well, okay, when I'm 70 years old, 80 years old, 90 years old, then I'll think about spiritual life, like that. But Prahlad Maharaj, he was preaching to his classmates, wasn't he? And he was trying to convince them. And Prahlad was, at that time, he was 5 years old, just starting Gurukula in a demoniac school. We have not a Krishna conscious Gurukula. It was a Gurukula means under the guidance of the Guru. And of course, they were being taught only materialistic things. It's basically the schools in our present time, the mundane schools, it's like that. So where everyone's taught material things and material purposes of life, and nothing but better than that. So Prahlad Maharaj, he was in that kind of a school, to be taught all kinds of materialistic things, demoniac things, like that. But of course, he knew better. He was already Krishna conscious. So every day he would, when his teachers were away, and recess, because we now, I guess the kids at some point in the day, especially the young kids, there's a recess once or twice in a day to go out and use up your energy, and so you can calm down and go back and try to learn something. So they had their recess, and the teachers were somewhere else. They were not bothering the kids. So at that point, Prahlad immediately starts preaching to his classmates. He preaches to his classmates, and of course, Prahlad was very attractive. I mean, everyone there liked him. They so much appreciated Prahlad. So he was taking advantage. They were appreciating him. They liked him. They trusted him. So he said, you should forget about all this materialistic activities that we're being taught. You should practice Krishna consciousness. You should learn to chant Hare Krishna. You should avoid the sinful activities in life and so on. You develop some love for God, for Krishna. And they actually were attracted. But they're thinking, and they say, "Oh, Prahlad, we like what you're saying, but we're just kids. We're 5 years old. We're just kids. Now is our time for playing. And when we get old and then we say, then we can practice Krishna consciousness. That's our time to finish everything else in life." So they were arguing like that. But Prahlad said, "No, it's not going to work that way. It's not going to work that way because right now you're in school, and in your early school, there's a lot of this kind of play and it's a little studying in between just to get started." So he says, in the early days, in the early part of your life, you're playing games. You're just enjoying. And then you spend so many years in school studying. And in that case, the study was all material things. It has nothing to do with God. Maybe it had to do with forgetting about God. It's just like many years ago when I was in high school or early high school or junior high school, I don't know. They had this Supreme Court ruling about taking prayer out of school. You weren't even allowed to be seen praying in school or mentioning God in school. You actually were removed from school if you did that after they made this law. So that was bad. Now it's a little bit different than that, a little bit better in some ways. But in any case, God he was saying you spend so many years of your life, early life, playing games and enjoying. Then you go to spend many years of your life going to school. They might have stayed at school up to 20 years, so maybe 25 years old. And then he says, and then you will probably get married. Most would get married. They didn't, they had brahmacharya life in the school at that time. It was a kind of demonic society. So you get married, and you spend so many years in household life, working hard, maintaining your family, taking care of so many children, like that. And then by the time you're 50 or 60, all that's done. But by that time, you don't have the energy you had before. Your health is not as good as it was before. Then you gradually move into the stage of invalidity, and then so by the time you actually have, his argument was that by the time you finish all this, everything else in life that you're supposed to be doing, then you say, "Oh, I want to take a Krishna consciousness now, but I don't have the time, I don't have the energy, I'm too sick," like that. But in Vedic culture, in a good Vedic culture, and someone grows up in a good situation, then they understand what the priority is. So just like here, Vasudeva has this priority to first save Devaki, first save her, because otherwise she's going to be dying, and then anything else in his life will try to adjust as you go along. So Vedic culture means that from the beginning of your life, especially if you're a good Brahmana Vaishnava family, in that kind of society, then you take up the path of Krishna consciousness, and you understand by your intelligence that this is the priority. First thing is Krishna consciousness, and maybe you also go through and you get married, you have family or children like that. But your priority is Krishna consciousness. And of course, the idea is that you don't. If there's a devotee and he has family, then he's training. He and his family together are becoming Krishna conscious. This is the principle. We don't say, let me spend my whole life in a materialistic householder life, and then at some point in my life I just give it all up. No, we start becoming Krishna conscious from the beginning. And so someone happens to be born in such a family. That's very fortunate. But whatever point we take up the path of Krishna consciousness, our priority should be that I will dedicate my life to Krishna consciousness. I may get married, I may have a job, I may do many things in my life, but the priority, the center of all this is to become Krishna conscious. And of course, that's what's practical for the society in general. So Srila Prabhupada, of course, gave that opportunity to us, to everyone, to take up the path of Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada wrote in the one purport in the first canto, probably the first chapter of the Srimad-bhagavatam. He wrote. Gave some suggestions for society in general, and one of those suggestions was that everyone, unless they were actually wanted to really live as a brahmachari, everyone practically would got married in such a society. There would be no such things as boyfriends and girlfriends. So we would compare boyfriend and girlfriend in what was called like that in modern times as more like prostitution. That's what it's like. It's just for material enjoyment and sexual activities. It's like prostitution. As it was not for the purpose of becoming at least living a regulated household life. It's just for sense gratification without responsibility, and that's what it is. And then Srila Prabhupada also recommended, things like, stop the animal slaughter. Society cannot go anywhere. Material society cannot go anywhere if the people with human bodies, the living entities with human bodies, are killing, slaughtering the animals, especially the cows. Srila specifically mentioned the cows. He says cows or he says actually the cows produce milk, and milk is considered to be, the term was religiosity in liquid form. Religiosity in liquid form. Because Srila gave two reasons, I can remember. One of those reasons, of course, is by drinking milk, it helps to develop the higher or the finer brain tissues. It helps to develop the finer brain tissues so that we can understand spiritual life. It means even if you're a super intellectual, materially speaking, you may not understand spiritual life, but drinking milk is actually very helpful towards the physical side of understanding the higher principles, which means spiritual life. And then it's also called liquid religiosity because in Vedic culture it was very common that you perform sacrifices. It's like we have our fire sacrifices we do from time to time for initiations, marriages, and other things. So we have those fire sacrifices. Fire sacrifices you have to pour ghee. So ghee comes from milk. Ghee comes from cream, which comes from milk, part of the milk, and like that. So in that way the milk is considered to be religiosity in liquid form. So Srila Prabhupada always preached very heavily against against eating meat and slaughtering animals and so on, and especially the cows. But actually, in Vedic culture, the kings were the Krishna conscious kings, the pious kings, they protected every living entity. Every living entity was protected. If they were within their kingdom, which might have been the entire world, they had to make sure that every living entity was protected. Especially if some living entity came to the king saying, "Please protect me," then he would have to get protection. We have the history of Maharaj Parikshit, who he was the first one to see some symptoms, some kind of symptoms, bad omens in the world that indicated the coming of the age of Kali, or not that it was coming, it actually had just come, because the age of Kali, when Krishna appeared in the end of the Dwapara Yuga, and Kali couldn't do anything. Kali had no power. But Srila Prabhupada says the very moment, the very second that Lord Krishna disappeared, externally disappeared from this world, then immediately Kali came in. And it's the end of the Dwapara Yuga, beginning of the Kali Yuga. The Kali Yuga actually began that very moment that Lord Krishna left, stopped his earthly pastimes. So Maharaj Parikshit, he was starting to see symptoms of envy and different. You could see certain things are different in the society. You could see, he was aware of this. So, and he understood this is the beginning of the Kali Yuga. So he knew there was a problem. So as a king, not just a king, he was an emperor. He was the emperor of the entire world. And the entire world at that time didn't mean just our planet Earth. It meant way beyond that. Blue Mandala, there's a much bigger area. The kings were actually kings of everything. So he saw this, so he went out and got his bow and arrows, and he started going around throughout his kingdom to find out where there's some problem here. Let me find the problem and deal with it. Of course, we don't have those kings, leaders like that today. They increase the problems. But Maharaj Parikshit understood what the problem was, and he looked around, and so he came across a person. It was actually a low-class person who was dressed in the royal order. He was dressed like a king, but he had a cow and he had a bull there, and he was beating them, he was hurting them, trying to kill them actually. The bull in this particular case had his legs, three of his legs had already been injured, broken, I think actually the term was used. And so Maharaj Parikshit saw this, and of course you cannot, in his kingdom, this is not going to happen. So he was about ready to kill Kali, this personality. And then he asked the bull, saying, who has done this to you? It's kind of obvious who did it to him. But he asked the bull, who has done this to him? Who's caused you this problem? I will chastise them. And the bull, who was actually religion personified, he started making different arguments, different different philosophies out there. He didn't actually want to answer the question saying who has done it. He actually never said who has done it. But in the end, he made a statement, the bull made a statement, and he says, if I state if someone has caused me this problem, and I say that the real cause of this problem was, who's the immediate cause of this problem to me, if I say it like that, then I also becomes implicated, he said. He says, because the understanding is that if somebody's attacking me, okay, you can say this person attacked me. Okay, that's there. But ultimately, the bull is saying, but I understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for some reason, has allowed this or has orchestrated this, and so therefore the ultimate cause is the Supreme Lord. I cannot say that this particular person who's standing in front of you did it. And then he asked the questions to the cow, who was the personified earth. I don't recall all the questions now, but in the end, he had his answer. So Maharaj Parikshit took a sword, and he was about ready to kill this person. It was actually Kali personified, or the age of Kali personified. You can imagine actually approaching some person who's actually the personification of Kali Yuga. I think, I'm going to chastise this person. Can't even imagine approaching someone like that. But he had the ability to do this. Maharaj Parikshit had so powerful he could do this. So he immediately went to the personality of Kali and challenged him, and he was just about ready to kill him, because no one kills or hurts a cow or a bull in Vedic culture. No one. This is the first time. And Kali, of course, knew that Maharaj Parikshit could kill him. So Kali was smart in that sense. And he said, "Oh, Maharaj Parikshit, I surrender to you. I am your servant. I will do anything you want. But you have to give me but you need to give me a place to live. I'm in your kingdom, so you have to protect me too. You have to give me some place where I can live." So Maharaj Parikshit said, "Yes, you can live anywhere in my entire kingdom. Shelter anywhere in my entire kingdom where there is animal slaughter, prostitution, or intoxication, or gambling. Any of those four activities, anywhere in my kingdom, you're welcome to go to those places." But Kali was very smart, and of course he was personified, the sage personified. He immediately said, "But Maharaj Parikshit, in your kingdom there is no such place like this." You can imagine. In the kingdom of Kali, in Maharaj Parikshit's kingdom, the whole planet, at that particular time, there was no animal slaughter, there was no prostitution, there was no intoxication, no gambling, no untruthfulness. It didn't exist. So he said, I've been all the whole planet. I know there's no place like this. So you have to give me some other place. So where did he say to go? What was his option after that? Hoarding of gold. Yes, the hoarding of gold. The hoarding of gold. Of course, wealth was basically gold at that time. Now we have paper money. But at that time it was gold. So he said anywhere where there's the hoarding of gold, you could say. And Srila Bhagavatam explains that wherever there's the hoarding of gold, which means greed, basically, you take more than what you need, is greediness. What hoarding of gold really means. So wherever there is a hoarding of gold, you can stay there. So Srila Prabhupada explained in the purport that the hoarding of gold meant that wherever people were there, they were greedy for material things, then other things like prostitution and all these different illicit bad activities would gradually start coming in. So Kali's position, Kali started going to those kind of places. There was the hoarding of gold. There was some qualities like that in the world. So Srila Prabhupada says that how does Srila Prabhupada define Kali as what? The accelerating agent for irreligious principles. So Kali's job, what he's empowered to do, is that if there's any sinful life, any irreligious life, then he increases that irreligious activity. I'm not following. Yeah, so the question is, I'll just explain it. So Kali, or the personality of Kali, what is he? He is the accelerating agent for irreligious principles. So if there's any irreligious principle in the world, then Kali can go there. He can be in many places at once. He's very expert like that. So if there's an irreligious principle, then he goes there, and the tendency toward irreligion will increase. And the more it increases, of course, the stronger he gets, and the quicker it becomes, the simple activities become increased more and more. So it becomes very powerful in that way. And of course, we may think, we're practicing Krishna consciousness and we're in Kali Yuga. So what chance do we have? Because these sinful activities are all around us. So Kali is very powerful. So how do we avoid it? We avoid it because Srila Prabhupada, not just Srila Prabhupada, all the previous acharyas for previous ages, if you want spiritual life, if you want even human life, practically speaking, then you don't eat meat, you don't have illicit sex, don't use intoxication, and you don't gamble. So Srila Prabhupada, from the beginning, even before the initiation, before the first initiation, you have to promise, agree, commit that for the rest of my life, I will not do any of those four activities. Now, what does that mean? It means that if we are strictly avoiding sinful activities, those are four sinful activities, which Srila Prabhupada says actually those four sinful activities that all sinful activities in the world are summarized in those four sinful activities. It's all included there. So it's that if we avoid those four sinful activities, then what happens? Kali cannot enter into changes. So we're practicing Krishna consciousness. So it's not that we just practice Krishna consciousness and then kind of like, okay, a little this is sex here, and a little bit of this here, and a little bit of this here. It's okay. No, there's a little bit here and a little bit there. It means the Kali will come in, and when Kali comes in, then the religion increases, and we become more covered. So we want to practice Krishna consciousness strictly. Make progress in Krishna consciousness. It means that we have to, by following the regular principles, then Kali actually cannot enter into our lives. We do not. It means we can practice Krishna consciousness without becoming degraded, even though the rest of the world becomes degraded. We can avoid being degraded because we follow the regular principles. And of course, we cannot really just I can always say, Srila said 16 rounds and 4 regular principles. So those 16 rounds takes, 2 hours if we're not falling asleep. And the regular principles don't take any time. So if we spend all our time, we only spend 2 hours a day chanting our rounds, and you say, well, okay, that's pretty easy. I got 23 hours a day to do whatever I want. No, you have to just 23 hours a day. We got to follow the principles. And the chanting, if we don't chant, then we will forget everything else about spiritual life. Srila warned us like that. Like he said once in terms of deity worship, if you're worshiping the deities, but you're not, actually, it wasn't regarding chanting specifically there, it's regarding to, well, yeah, it is regarding chanting. Chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, and also hearing and chanting the Srimad-bhagavatam Gita. We have, if we're doing these other hearing and chanting, that's very good for us. If we don't do them, then what happens is the deity worship, which is basically deity worship, is ritualistic in a sense. Artik every day is the same. Certain regulated activities you do every day. It's ritual in a sense. But if we are simply doing that ritualistic activities and we forget why we're doing it, then we'll very quickly. Srila Prabhupada actually used the term. He says, if you're not hearing and chanting nicely, then when you're worshiping the deity, you'll be thinking, oh, why has this old man, according to Srila Prabhupada, why has this old man given us such a burden around the neck? That we have to deal with serving the deities. Why? It's not a burden. If your consciousness is simply we're going through the activities, but we're not chanting our rounds, we're not hearing the philosophy, not speaking the philosophy, then we forget why we're doing what we're doing, and then we think, I want to have so many things I want to do today, but I got to do this artik at this time, I got to cook this offering at this time, I got to do this other for the deities at this time. My whole life is like I can't do anything, I'm stuck. But somebody who's hearing and chanting nicely likes doing artik, likes dressing the deities, likes cooking for Krishna, likes doing all these things because we're remembering who we're actually serving. If we don't have that hearing and chanting, then we forget why we're doing what we're doing, and then it becomes just like, I just got to get this out of the way so I can do what I want to do. Or maybe I just give it all up and give up everything. So Srila warned us like that. So anyway, the conclusion of all this was just as Vasudeva is trying to do what is the priority. So we also should do, our priority should be strictly practicing Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada said we practice, not practice exactly, but we've been serving Maya for how many lifetimes? Millions, billions, trillions of lifetimes? We don't know. We've been serving Maya for so many lifetimes. And it says, if you're serving like that for so many lifetimes, and you don't, and you're still not happy, right? So he said, just give one lifetime. You give millions and billions of lifetimes for Maya. Just give this one lifetime strictly for Krishna's service, and then you'll be happy. And then if you want to go back to Maya after you become completely Krishna conscious, well, like Srila says, he gave us prasad. He says, my secret weapon. So we practice Krishna consciousness. If we become fully Krishna conscious, then we go back to Godhead. If we go back to Godhead, we don't come back here again. Because Srila Prabhupada said like that. Once Krishna says like that, once having returned to my eternal abode, you'll never come back to this miserable material world again. So we don't have to worry that I worked so hard, I finally did it, I finally went back to the spiritual world, and maybe I'll mess up. But what happens if I mess up and I come back here for 10 zillion more lifetimes? No, Krishna says himself, I mean, once coming back to my eternal abode, you will not come back here again. So, anyway, I always go. Any questions, comments? Okay, so we'll end for today, and we'll continue with the next verse tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada Ki.